Welcome to the Ayn Rand Fan Club. I'm Scott Schiff, along with William Swig. William, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. We've been very fortunate to just have some great guests on over the past few weeks. And, we finally have a little bit of a lull. We're able to get to some issues that we've had on the back burner for now. Including strategies for promoting Rand's ideas. Count me in the camp that thinks Rand's ideas aren't spreading fast enough. Actually, I used to say that in the 90s when it seemed like we were growing much faster. And this is at a time when Ayn Rand's ideas should be the main cultural counterweight to this new ideology of critical race theory. I mean, these CRT mystical claims that there's different realities for different identity groups, or that objective reality itself is some manifestation of your white male straight cis privileges. It's the primacy of existence and the objectivity that shows the folly of those claims. The other day I was typing Ayn Rand into YouTube and sorting by views. As of August 2021, number one is lefty comedy guy John Oliver from 2014, asking why Ayn Rand is still a thing, trashing her, and even the segment title, why is this still a thing, is a lefty comedian's way of basically asking why she still exists, while interlaced with mean-spirited jokes. So it has 6.6 million views as of now. Next, at 4.9 million views, is the famous Simpsons parody clip from 1992. This was posted 5 years ago about when they enrolled baby Maggie in the Ayn Rand School for Tots. I don't know if you remember, but the school wouldn't let the babies have pacifiers, and Maggie works with the other babies to get them back. This was still a bit of a liberal dig against Rand, but it's tame by today's atmosphere, certainly versus John Oliver's nastiness. I think maybe lefties in Hollywood had less cultural power back then, so they had to act more civilized. I laughed when it came out. I mean, most fans on net enjoyed just having the mention. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to note that the top two videos you've mentioned so far are basically jokes, and they're entertainment, and people like to watch that type of thing, over and over. And so it'll probably get multiple views from the same people who enjoy John Oliver and The Simpsons and that brand of comedy. But also with John Oliver, I note that he doesn't really do a lot of misrepresenting of Rand's ideas. It's mostly him joking around and poking fun at Ayn Rand's expense. And same thing with The Simpsons. It's mostly just jokes. They're joking around, and one of the reasons why The Simpsons probably didn't go harder against Rand is because it's a family show on a TV network. So John Oliver, I believe, was on a cable program, so he probably felt like he could go harder and use bad language and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. At third place is actually when we finally get to a positive introduction of Ayn Rand. And with 3.8 million views as of now, it's PragerU's Understanding Ayn Rand. It's running about 6 minutes in length, and the video only came out about 4 or 5 months ago. And I heard that Carl Barney and Craig Biddle paid to get it produced. And, based on those numbers, it makes it, I think, one of the best uses of objectivist funding in recent memory that I'm aware of. And actually in fourth place is the long form interview that Dennis Prager did with Biddle right around the same time that the PragerU video came out. It has 1.4 million views. It's also worth noting that beyond the short videos that Prager does, that has a lot more of his fireside chats, that are these hour plus long chats like he did with Craig Biddle. This one with Biddle was the highest viewed of all of Prager's fireside chat shows as well.
That's really amazing. It's fascinating to me that such a serious conversation could get that many views. I mean, it's on the order of a Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah,
And I think it's a testament to the effort and time and serious nature, serious effort they put into creating that video and doing the interview. It's a testament to their work and their productivity that they got so many views, and that it's they chose, first of all, they had to choose Prager. They had to identify Prager as a good place to have this video and this conversation, in spite of what other objectivists have been saying about Prager. Obviously Prager has issues. He's a religious conservative, and objectivism is an atheistic philosophy. So it was a challenge, I'm sure, to figure out how to do this sort of video on PragerU and make it popular.
absolutely. And we've got some clips of that because, I mean, obviously with results like that, you'd expect everyone to be praising the effort. Yaron Brook of ARI was asked about the Biddle interview at March. At first, Yaron said he would have vetoed doing it, and even said that he didn't want to sanction Prager.
Did you see the Prager University video about Ayn Rand? It already has 50,000 views. I heard the Objective Standard Institute bought that video. If so, was that a good use of funds? I would veto the Institute doing the same thing. And if talked about not doing it, because I think Prager, what Prager stands for, because of Prager's dishonest lawsuit against YouTube. I don't think Prager should be sanctioned. I don't think he's honest. I don't think he's a good person. So I would not have done it.
So he didn't want to sanction Prager qua Prager. Now I guess the interviews have to meet a litmus test as well. I just think the language of not sanctioning him is similar to the language that they used against David Kelly to say why he shouldn't talk to the libertarians.
What can you expand on that? What language are you referring to?
Well, I mean, that was the original charge, that David Kelly went to speak to this libertarian group. I mean, that's what, on sanctioning the sanctioners, it was meant to, say that he was bad for deigning to talk to libertarians. And as if that talking to them was a real problem. This goes to the objectivist history of unwillingness to engage with other groups, saying that none of them are good enough.
I think he was pretty clear, though, in that he thought it was a bad use of funds, because he says he wouldn't have done it at ARI. It implies that if he was in charge of the Objective Standard Institute, he wouldn't have done the video. Don't you think?
That's right.
And let me point out one other thing. In the beginning, you asked him, or the questioner asked him, what did he see the video? I mean, that's like the basic question, right? And he didn't seem to answer that. I don't know if he answered it later or before the clip, but in the clip, he didn't answer whether he saw the video. He just went into whether he would have vetoed it.
Yeah, he does say that he didn't watch a lot of the video because of he's not a fan of Craig, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But yet, Yaron backs off from saying that Biddle and Barney shouldn't have done the video.
They can do with it what it wants. They're trying to, they're trying to establish themselves. They're trying to get attention. They're trying to compete with the Institute, and they're coming from, and they have to spend a lot of money to do it. and they're spending a lot of money to do it. And they found an so-called ally, I guess, who gets their material in front of a lot of people. Are these the right people? Are these the people you want? I don't know. I doubt it. I'm not big on the religious conservatives as being our kind of people, right?
Our kind of people. I'm not sure what that means. Um, I don't know if Ayn Rand used that sort of language. She looked for her kind of people, or if she just tried to, get her ideas out there and see who would respond.
It speaks to an elitism of just, having the luxury of sitting back and waiting for the right people to come. I mean, I think that honest people willing to get into the ideas might be a better standard at this point.
Yeah, and it also implies that he knows who our kind of people are.
Right.
I've been studying objectivism for a long time now, like 20 something, 24 years, I think. And I don't know who will convert to objectivism. I mean, I just talk to people, and when I see someone, I don't know if they're going to be rational just by looking at them, or just by listening to their personal philosophy, at the time. Some people have the worst ideas in the world, and then you talk to them and they're like, oh yeah, and then they change their mind.
Right, because at least they take ideas seriously in some cases, even if they're irrational at the moment. Yeah,
that was my view growing up, is even when I was in high school, I took ideas seriously. But in high school, I was a Protestant. And then in college, someone said, hey, let's go to this philosophy club. And because I took ideas seriously, I went to the philosophy club meeting, and it happened to be an objectivist club. So I think it depends on how you look at ideas, how you look at your own mind and what's going on in your own brain, and if you take it seriously or not. And that's a hard thing to determine just by listening to someone or looking at them and seeing what they do.
Sure. I also think objectivists have been fooled by leftists who call themselves atheists and intellectuals or science-based or the cool kids, whatever it is that makes them seem more like our kind of people, I guess. That they're not to me. But by the end of the segment, he reiterates that he thinks it's okay for Craig to have done the video, even though he still doesn't think it was right for ARI.
I'm not going to condemn what they did. I just said I wouldn't do it as ARI. They are buying the time. I don't think it does huge damage, and it might bring a few people to objectivism. I prefer that they came to the Ayn Rand Institute than to the objective standard, but it's their money, not mine.
He says he won't condemn the video. So
hey, that's something. It's progress, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if Yaron won't condemn something, that's good.
Yeah, I just think, how are religious conservatives going to come in through ARI if you won't deign to work with large groups of them that express interest in Ayn Rand?
Yeah, that's the primary point for me, is that you talk to people who are interested in your ideas. I mean, it's that simple. And then you go from there. They might be dishonest, they might have a bad motive for talking to you, or they might be a troll pretending to be interested, but you're not going to find out until you start talking to them and evaluating their character. So it's a tough thing to say a whole group of people like religious conservatives are not our kind of people. It's a tough thing to accept, because that's a big group of people, and you've got to imagine that there's a good chunk of them who are serious thinkers, and they just haven't figured something out. They haven't figured out why God is arbitrary, and faith is not the way to knowledge. So it's a way of well, for them, it's a problem because they haven't figured something out in their own mind. And I see my job as kind of helping them along, or trying to relate to them in a way that helps them understand what I want them to understand.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that CRT is a cult, and that it makes lefties more of a threat than the right. But I don't preclude trying leftist outreach if there are Andres or other good people out there.
Yeah, it depends on what you mean by leftist. So there's this issue of conceptual differentiation between like liberals and leftists. So Dave Rubin thinks of himself as a classical liberal, while someone like Sam Cedar probably also thinks of himself as a liberal. But then you've got AOC and Bernie, and they're socialists. They're
Yeah,
left. They're
I meant
leftist.
I meant in the broadest perspective, just that even though I lean right, like he leans left, I'm not going to close off the idea of getting prospects from the side that I don't lean towards. I mean,
Right.
is it logically fair to lament new people coming in through the objective standard when it's via a group you would have vetoed anyway, like Dennis Prager? For
Yeah.
Craig.
Why? I mean, yeah, it's interesting that he cares, what they're doing. It's like he wouldn't, like, if I were asked that question, what do I think of? First of all, I wouldn't have answered the way he answered, because I wasn't asked that. I mean, he was asked, does he think it's a good use of funds, and not whether ARI would veto it. The question is really about a broad use of funding that's available to objectivists. It's not just about ARI, but for people like Yaron, I think it is just about ARI. It's whatever ARI is doing. That's the focal point of the movement, right? And so if it's good for ARI, it's good for the movement.
Yeah, that to some, ARI is the movement, and that's part of what the whole idea of the fan club is part of, to challenge. For Craig's part, he was on a show and he explained that he wasn't there to debate Prager, but actually to make a conscious effort to interest his audience.
That, and I wanted to give him and his audience an indication. When you're on somebody's show, you're not trying to teach everybody about objectives. You're trying to indicate and motivate, basically. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to indicate, hey, there's a new way of looking at this stuff. Ayn Rand's views are completely new. They've only been around for 70 some years, at least in 60 or 70 years in full form. And so that's what I wanted to do. And so there were many times where I could have gone into a tirade about the evils of religion, but I don't think that was going to help to get people in his audience to look into these ideas. That's what I really wanted to do.
So yeah, he was not trying to pick a fight with his interviewer on purpose, but to get interest from his audience, which should actually be the end game in any interaction with other outside groups, debate or discussion.
Yeah, I think there's a difference in style between Craig and Yaron. Craig clearly tries to focus on what his interviewer is asking him, and he wants to answer the questions because he thinks that Prager's audience is interested in what Prager's interested in, which makes logical sense to me. That's kind of like an objective criteria for determining how the audience you're talking to is going to relate to you. They want you to talk to their guy, right? So their guy is Prager. Prager's asking you questions. You just talk to Prager and try to be civil about it. I think Yaron has said routinely that he's not there to win or debate the guy. He's there to appeal to the audience, as if it's some imagined audience of his where he thinks he knows what they want to hear. But I've never talked to someone and thought it doesn't matter what I say to this guy. It matters what I say to the audience. You know, it's like, I don't know where you make that distinction. So if I'm talking to someone on their show, I want to relate to them, right? I'm talking to them. So
Yeah.
I don't really understand how Yaron gauges what the audience wants.
Right. At some point, you have to believe they're going to appreciate your earnestness and integrity and consistency, and just lay it out there. And don't even worry about what everyone's thinking. Just go in and have a good quality conversation with someone their audience likes, like you were saying. You know,
Yeah.
in a later episode, Yaron was actually asked about reports that there was a 50% increase in sales in Atlas Shrugged after the Biddle videos came out.
If it turns out that we should go full steam ahead on religious conservatives, and you can show me proof that that's where we should go to get our, and those religious conservatives, after they read Atlas Shrugged, become atheists and are likely to become objectivists, then I'll be the first one to advocate that we should go after religious conservatives. Haven't seen the proof yet. And again, 50% reading, 50% increase, if it's true, increase in buying Atlas Shrugged on Amazon, is not yet enough evidence. I want to see more evidence.
So here I want to take your own side a little bit, because I do agree that it's not clear where the stat comes from. And after asking you, you said it comes from Carl Barney blog post. So
Right,
I
it
read
was on
that.
this website.
So I read that blog post, and Carl Barney doesn't give a source for his information. So I don't know, and Yaron doesn't know where that stat comes from or whether it's true.
Yeah,
So
the stat is
so-
minor. I mean, even if the stat is not true, he was just asked about it. To me, the main takeaway from that clip for me is him using a standard of that they have to convert to atheism for how well Craig did. You know, I
yeah,
mean, the video
that's
just came out 4 or 5 months ago, and he's still saying, I'm not ready to even talk to religious conservatives until I see a bunch more evidence that they've all converted.
yeah. On that point, I agree. I don't think that should be the standard of whether you should talk to somebody, is that they're going to convert to atheism. It seems like the goal has shifted from spreading Ayn Rand's ideas to converting people to objectivism, which are two different things. So,
Yeah, and I don't even think that they have to be mutually exclusive, but you don't come into like these Christian people on day one and say, I need you to go ahead and renounce your God. You know, I mean, just talk to them about reason and rationality and heroes, or, you know, I mean, just some of the basics. Get them to read Anthem and see the value of the individual. You know, who knows how far along they'll come, but just moving people in our direction, that goes back to my momentum theory. I
yeah,
just think, you know,
there's the concept of baby steps,
right.
and in order to achieve something very difficult, you've got to break it down into smaller steps. And it seems like ARI wants to go, you know, skip some of those steps and just get a bunch of new intellectuals created. But I think the primary goal is what's reflected in the high school essay contest that ARI does, is you got to spread the ideas out to as many people as you can, and then, you know, see who's interested to become an intellectual. And there's even a stage before training them to become professors in college. There's the stage of just talking to the public who's interested and getting them more and more interested in the deeper ideas. So there's different levels of getting people interested in Ayn Rand's ideas. And I think you don't do yourself any favors if you cut off a whole group like religious conservatives and say they're not our kind of people.
Absolutely. I mean, could Prager use video be the top search result? by now, even if the Ayn Rand Institute and Yaron wasn't in a schism with Craig Biddle, because about a month after the video came out, Harry Binswanger and Peter Schwartz on the Harry Binswanger letter group and Meeting of the Minds, they criticized him for the interview and then kicked Craig out of Harry's groups, supposedly for not condemning Carl Barney's comments from 6 months earlier. So Yaron was asked about this and whether or not it meant a new schism.
Is this a new schism? Yeah. When somebody comes up and attacks you, and attacks you, and attacks you, and attacks you, lies about it, uses stolen material in order to do it, distorts reality, distorts facts, uses confidential information, constantly with no stop. Wait, you're supposed to just say, okay, well, I don't want schisms. God forbid we have a schism. God forbid I do anything. Let them just, I mean, I'm not an altruist. None of us should be altruistic.
Yeah, I agree we shouldn't be altruists, but those are some very serious charges he made against Craig. Repeatedly attacking, lying about it, using stolen material in order to do it. I think that it's actually a reference to Craig sending a transcript of Onkar Gati to the Harry Binswanger letter list members after he was kicked off. Yaron also claims he distorted reality, distorted facts, uses confidential information. I think that's another reference to the stolen material. But I mean, that sounds kind of worse than what they accused Kelly of even.
Yeah, it's an important point, whether the material's stolen. And I don't know if that's been settled. It's something that Yaron takes as self-evident. Was the recording of the OAC class, was that stealing material? I'm not so sure. I don't know. Is it part of the contract OAC students have that they can't record the classes? I don't know. So that's a question which is a fundamental question, I think. And I don't know if anyone's answered it. So I'd like to hear an answer to it. If it is stolen material, then that's a point in Yaron's favor. I'm not so sure Craig should be trafficking in stolen material if it's stolen. But the other point is that Onkar was talking about Craig. Onkar was giving his argument against Craig in a OAC class. And so what is Craig to do? If Onkar's argument comes in the form of an OAC class, how is Craig supposed to defend himself?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, I agree. I don't want to get too far out into the weeds about what really caused the schism, because I mean, it had to do with an apology that's owed from 10 years ago because Craig was insufficiently respectful of Leonard Peikoff as far as Yaron claims, even though Carl Barney claims that Leonard Peikoff is not actually seeking any kind of apology from Craig Biddle. So, I mean, you can really get into the weeds on some of this. I just think that, when you start doing charges of stolen material and, I mean, I think that those are serious charges that warrant some sort of presenting of evidence. But, according to this next clip, Yaron seems hesitant to do so.
That's my judgment. I don't expect you to understand. I haven't presented my case. I think they're dishonest and so on, but I haven't given you the facts to make an evaluation of them dishonest. Although, if you read the things that are being published about the Institute lately that Craig Biddle supports, I think you can find the inconsistency, the dishonesty embedded in them. I don't think you need all the facts that I have. So I'm not asking you to make a judgment.
Well, he always calls his opponents dishonest, right? Like
Right.
Sam Cedar's dishonest.
We'll get into that.
All of his all the people he debates who he doesn't like are dishonest. So he calls Craig dishonest. No evidence. It's just a routine accusation ad hominem, basically at this point. I think if he actually believes that an objectivist like Craig Biddle is dishonest, he should want to inform people of that and give a good argument for it, because we don't want dishonest people in the movement. Why
Oh,
why would he not tell people why Craig is dishonest and give a
sure.
solid argument for it? It's in his interest as an objectivist
Well,
to get dishonest objectivists out of the movement.
you notice he says both. He's not asking us to make a judgment, but yet we should be able to figure it out anyway. At least if we're
Right.
intrinsicist enough and don't question. I think what, to your point, I think he doesn't have the same power of Peikoff to demand that every objectivist stop talking to Craig. There's a lot of objectivists that like both of them and get value from both. So he's kind of turned it into his unwillingness to share his reasons for why objectivists should schism with Craig. So
Yeah. So I want to like dig into that. So
sure.
he so the point is that if you look at the evidence, or you look at what the Objective Standard Institute is saying, or what Craig is saying, you should be able to understand Yaron's point that they are dishonest, evil, bad, whatever. That's some sort of fallacy. It's appeal to something. It's appeal to your
Yeah, he
you know,
says that a
maybe
lot.
you
He's
have
like,
to-
I'm just going to leave it to your judgment. It's a kind of intrinsicist appeal. It's like, you know me, you know us. We're the Ayn Rand Institute. You can trust us.
yeah, but it's like you can trust yourself to figure it out. It's an appeal to some evidence out there that might or might not be visible to you, or might or might not be within your comprehension. It's I can't put my finger on it, but there's some sort of fallacy going on there. It's like appeal to your kind of ignorance. Like, oh, it might be like a reverse appeal to ignorance. It's saying you're ignorant of what you need to know in order to understand what I'm saying. So
Therefore, just accept my judgment.
yeah. So like if he sees it, so like this is what gets me, is that he's implying that he sees the evidence. He sees all the it's out there in the public, right? He's saying that the public information that's out there, if you just look at it, you should be able to figure out what I'm saying. So why can't he point to it? Why can't he just say, look, this is the evidence I'm referring to, and this is why it validates my conclusion? It's like, how hard is that? If it's obvious evidence that you should be able to see and look at and figure out for yourself, well, he should be able to tell you what it is.
Yeah. Now, I agree. I think let's assume that the schism isn't affecting Yaron's objective analysis of Craig's performance, just for the sake of argument. About a week later, he's asked again about the Prager interview.
Thoughts on Craig Biddle's interview in Prager University? I didn't have a bigger problem, a huge problem with Craig doing an interview with Prager. I wish he had been sharper, made clear the sharp differences between religion and objectivism.
So he seems to have settled on the idea that the interview wasn't bad in itself, but that Craig should have done a better job with it. I mean, to be fair to Craig, is it a fair standard to hammer differences while you're trying to bring new people in?
I just want to address the argument that Craig didn't do a good job attacking religion or distinguishing objectivism from religion. That's not true. And I don't think people should let Yaron get away with that, because Craig, not only did Craig go after the existence of God, he pointed out that faith is not the way to knowledge. And so he attacked the metaphysics and epistemology of religion. And he even got into some of the ethics. He presented objectivist ethics. So it was clear that Craig was an objectivist presenting Ayn Rand's ideas in contrast to religion and God and faith. I don't think you can attack Craig for not going after religion enough. I don't know what Yaron wants from Craig. It's not clear. It's what did Craig not do? So
Right.
did he not say one of the things Yaron, okay, so one of the things Yaron says is that Craig didn't point out all the religious atrocities in the past. And so, because one of the things Prager brought up is that secular atheists like the communists killed a bunch of people. And then Yaron says Craig should have brought up the fact that the Amalekites in the Bible were slaughtered by the Jews, and down to the last child and cow on the farm. So it's but why should Craig have to do that? It seems like Yaron wants Craig to bring up tired old arguments against religion about how religion is evil from the Old Testament days. But that's not going on anymore. You don't see Christians slaughtering, genociding people. So it's not a relevant argument today. The relevant argument, which is what Craig did, is say that objectivism is a distinct type of atheism. Objectivists are not like communists. They're not like other atheists. And that's the argument that Craig made. And I don't think Yaron listened to the interview. So I don't know how much he knows about what Craig said, but clearly he doesn't remember or doesn't recognize how Craig did argue against religion.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's just not a fair standard to hammer differences while Craig's trying to bring new people in. It's like Yaron was critiquing him as if it were a debate. And you're right. Yeah, I didn't play all the clips where, Yaron is really micromanaging how Craig should have responded to individual arguments. But in doing an objective analysis, Yaron himself has had some debate issues of his own that he's talked about recently. And I give him a lot of credit for being candid about his own performance. This is from April 19th, where he debated a young progressive going by Mouthy Infidel.
Mouthy, no, toothache happened well before Mouthy. Mouthy didn't affect it. Mouthy actually did the Mouthy debate while under the treatment of drugs to reduce the pain. So, all right, I hope you all enjoyed the debate on Saturday night with Mouthy. It was a little, I don't know what the right word is, but I find it difficult to, to debate kids who are younger than my kids, but so be it. I thought he was a good kid. I thought he was well prepared. He'd done his homework. He had all his studies lined up. He had a lot of material ready to go. So I give him credit for all of that.
So just generally, if you're bringing up that you were on medication for some sort of medical condition, it's a sign that you maybe didn't do such a great job in the debate.
Well, it is an excuse. I mean, if he was in pain, that had to affect, his mental state.
Sure.
So that it's valid to use that as an excuse for poor performance. But also one of the issues, and this is a running thing with him, is he's a live streamer. He's a stream of consciousness type who works with few notes probably. So he could have been more prepared. And I think if he knew he was going to be in pain, you would want to be even more prepared so that you don't have to rely on memory and just off the cuff thinking. if he was under medication and he knew he was going up against some kid, he'd want to prepare up the wazoo for this and be ready, to handle this kid. Otherwise, I mean, why is he debating kids if he's just gonna, if after the fact he's gonna compliment them on how well prepared they were? I mean, it's like, why wasn't he prepared?
Yeah.
So
We know these kids are preparing.
Frankly, I think that he should be the one crushing these kids with mature rhetoric and well-prepared points, and even write out some statements if he has to. But the sad fact is that he's not great at debating right now. I mean, I don't know what it is. He's sometimes he's good. I mean, I think he's
Yeah, he has his good moments.
When he's talking about his subject matter, like finance or economics, and even like the Middle East, he knows his facts, so he can kind of wing it in those instances. But when he's just going up against socialists, I mean, that's a philosophical problem. And I don't know. I didn't watch the whole Mouthy infidel debate. I only watched the first few minutes. So you have to tell me: was Mouthy? Is he a socialist or is he like a libertarian?
No, he's a socialist. He just, he was very good with having his ducks all in a row. I only saw part of it. It was a few months ago at this point. On May 30th, he was recalling his appearance with Jordan Peterson at Ocon from 2018. And I bring this up because after criticizing Biddle's performance again, Yaron is objective enough to say that he appreciates that these debates are hard.
And I'm not going after Craig because these things are hard to do. They're not easy. But you got to be on your toes. And again, I don't think my discussion with Jordan Peterson was particularly good. I don't remember it that well, but I don't think it was particularly good. It could have been a lot better, and I'd like another shot at it. This is not related to anything. But let me just say, I don't think I granted Jordan Peterson anything. I don't think I gave him religion. I don't think I said, oh no, that point of view, we're allies in something. I don't think I did that. Maybe I did, but I don't think I did.
I've watched the Peterson Ocon appearance and listened to what Yaron said, and I've watched that maybe 3 times now. And I can't remember much about it either. It wasn't very memorable. So I understand why he doesn't remember much about it.
Everyone seemed starstruck and was just like listening to him talk and not really questioning him on anything.
Yeah, but the real takeaway was the tree stump is a chair. That's one of the things that Peterson said, which Yaron seemed to just accept. At the time, that's the problem with debates is that you can't think on your feet as well, because you're under stress and the strain of a debate or a conversation. So Yaron just accepted this idea that the tree stump is a chair. And then they had to have a follow-up conversation with Onkar to, sort this all out. But yeah, I think that the main idea that Craig allied with Prager and Yaron didn't ally with Peterson, that's also on shaky grounds, because the first 30 minutes of their conversation with Jordan Peterson was them talking about how much they're into individualism and free speech and how they agree about inequality. And so there was a lot of agreement between them. It wasn't as if they weren't allied on certain topics. And it's not like they pressed Peterson on his concepts of individuality and free speech and inequality. Mostly they got down to like a argument over epistemological issues. There wasn't a real political confrontation.
I was surprised to hear him say he wanted to debate Peterson again, because he said some bad things about Peterson for, converting people over to religion. And I would think that even appearing with Peterson might be a sanction at this point by that standard.
Well, I don't know why you'd want to talk to a dangerous person again. I mean, has called Jordan Peterson dangerous. So, I mean, if you see someone as dangerous, you really want to put him in front of your audience and say, "Hey, this guy's worth talking to."
What he
No,
wants.
he's worth writing off, and if he gets near you, point a gun in his face.
Yeah, and even if they shouldn't have had him the first time, I guess by that standard, they still he still wants a chance to redeem himself. I mean, I agree with Yaron. These debates are hard. I kind of wish I had the Valiant debate back a little bit. Our interview with him, maybe we'll get him back. But for all of Yaron's compliments about Craig's performance, in June, Yaron did a debate with some apparently much better known lefty named Vosh, during which I heard the guy call Yaron a bootlicker at least twice. And I didn't think Yaron got nearly mad enough about that. I mean, that just opens up a counterpunch to me. But Yaron also generally thought he could have done better.
So, debate last night was, I mean, the main word for me was frustrating. And I'm not going to say I don't think I did a particularly good job at the debate. And what's frustrating to me is my inability to, and I have to work on this and figure out how to do it better when I go up with these some of these mindless leftists, is how to pivot the debate to more fundamental issues and to moral issues and philosophical issues. And so we got to some of that, and some of that was covered, but he kept shifting it to where he thought he had me, and he clearly thought he had me with this weird, which I'd never heard before, parallel between kings and aristocracy and CEOs. That was a new one for me. Never heard that.
Whenever I debate a mindless person, I'm also frustrated, because how do you convey anything to someone without a mind?
Yeah. Isn't debating a mindless person a sanction? If you want to go there, you can use that to never debate anyone.
Yeah, it's really sad that he's frustrated in his debates with mindless people. And first of all, he's calling them names. I don't know. I guess you said Vosh called him a bootlicker, so I guess there's some justification for calling Vosh names, but really, if he's not going to do it to Vosh's face, I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. I don't know why he would be doing it, on his live stream after the fact.
He's frustrated about the performance. I give him credit that maybe he's finally starting to see that lefties use underhanded tactics like calling us bootlickers and bigots to establish some sort of moral dominance.
Yeah, I mean, that's par for the course, though, when you're talking to a leftist. So yeah. I don't know.
Part of what makes them a bigger threat.
Yeah, and also there's the question of, well, why are you talking to these people? I mean, and then so he justifies talking to mindless leftists by saying, I'm trying to reach their audience. Okay, you're trying to reach an audience of a mindless leftist. It's like, well, okay, good luck with that. What kind of audience do you expect him to have? It's just, I don't understand the whole purpose of talking to people who have no manners, have no etiquette, who can't even talk to you without calling you names. It's just ridiculous.
Well, I don't mind the idea of outreach, but make it where there's like a specific chance, and not that the guy's bringing you on so he can just trash talk you to his fans in a later episode.
Yeah,
like Vaush was doing.
Yeah, that would be the least of my worries, is that they're gonna, I'm gonna give them fodder for their their sequel follow-up episodes.
But I'm going to stay on offense with them the whole time, assuming if they're leftists, they're doing it just to try to humiliate conservatives, libertarians, or Ayn Rand fans. I mean, because soon after that interview, Steven Crowder had taken some heat for not wanting to debate Sam Seder. And then Yaron challenged Sam Seder and went on his show, The Majority Report. They had about an hour-long discussion. Seder got Yaron to make a comment about the Miami building collapse that, he then made him seem insensitive to the tragedy. So Seder and other liberals had fun, stereotyping him as a heartless libertarian.
Unfortunately, I don't think it turned out. I don't think the debate was that good, or I wasn't that good in the debate. So those of you, I think you should watch it. I think it's informative. I think it's worth watching. So you should watch it. But like definitely I'd say in the last quarter of the hour, let's say, and I'll talk about in a minute why and the complexity of that. I think I had him. And I think I had him on the defensive in a sense through the first, I'd say 45 minutes. And then, not that I said anything wrong, but the two topics you raised at the end are difficult ones, difficult to deal with, not enough time, rushed, which provided them with some great soundbite fodder to use against me. And I become the villain on Twitter.
First thing I notice about these follow-up conversations about his debates is that he says that he didn't do a particularly good job, or in this case with Sam Seder, he left out particularly and just said he didn't do a good job. And that's kind of like someone who doesn't want to admit they did badly or didn't do well, or like made mistakes. Instead of focusing on the badness and the mistakes, they just say, oh, I didn't do good. Or that wasn't a good hamburger. What do people mean when they say that wasn't a good hamburger? They mean that was a bad hamburger. I didn't like it. So why can't Yaron just say he did a bad job?
He is doing that. He's putting the best face possible on it, but I think what you're saying, he has kind of a boilerplate way of explaining when these debates don't go well. It's like, I don't think it was a particularly good job, and that's kind of the tell,
it's like,
if you will.
It's his catchphrase now. I didn't do a particularly good job. So,
right.
And I think I don't want to call it evasion, but it's kind of like trying to avoid saying what you know to be the truth. It's like you say, putting the best face on it, putting some spin on it. But that's not what an objectivist does. An objectivist comes right out and gives you the plain fact of it. And if the plain fact is that he did a bad job, then he did a bad job. And then you can focus on what were the bad things that you did and how could you improve and things like that. So, everybody does poorly once in a while. It's like, but if you're trying to fake it and say, I didn't do a good job, then that doesn't really mean anything. That's a wishy-washy way of saying that I didn't do good. All right. So I see now I'm doing it. It's a wishy-washy saying, a way of saying I was bad. I didn't do my
I get it. And like I said, I do appreciate that at least within trying to put the best face on it, he is at least saying whether or not he thinks he did well. There was one more from a couple weeks ago, because I actually went to the debate that he did in February with John Mackey on the whether or not the sole purpose of a business is making money. And I thought Yaron probably got the best of him at that debate in February. Basically Mackey was saying, our customers want us to talk about stakeholders and things like caring about the environment, and it's difficult, but they went back to Freedom Fest and they did a second debate, Yaron versus Whole Foods CEO John Mackey, about businesses. And here's the analysis of that one.
And then today I did a rematch of my debate with John Mackey. So we did a round two. And I have to say, I wasn't particularly happy with round two. So I don't think I did very well. I don't know exactly why. Um, I had, anyway, I didn't, I didn't do that well. And so my view is we need a round three. So my plan is to do round three in Austin, Texas, sometime in the fall, at the University of Texas in Austin, and I'm going to do much better.
Well, you were saying he needs to prepare more for these. It sounds like he at least would prepare for the third debate.
Yeah, I mean, he needs another shot at it. Like he needs another shot at Jordan Peterson, probably another shot at Sam Cedar. But if you prepare initially and you get your ducks in order, you won't need to follow up, or you don't need a rematch. Champions beat everybody.
Well,
So
once you won the first one, he thought the second one would be easy, I guess. But this time, Mackey actually had a new argument.
So one of the questions Mackie asked me, which is a good question, and I think I gave a decent answer, but I could have done an even better one. Mackie asked the question of, were Dagny and Reardon in Atlas Shrugged, were they motivated by making a profit? Was that their primary motivation? Was that why they were in business? And my answer is, was, and is, no.
Great. He does go on to say it's different once you're in business, but Mackey's question basically had Yaron taking Mackey's side in the debate, that there's more than just profit to a business.
yeah, well, first of all, when they started these debates, I thought the resolution was confusing, or at best, and just dumb at worst. So I kind of sympathize with Yaron here, because he's probably not getting the type of debate he wants. That's just my speculation.
Yeah.
And Mackey, being the big CEO, is probably getting what he wants. So
I'm curious about who helped Mackey with that question.
Yeah, it sounds like you're on struggling to keep up with Mackey. So but the question that Mackey asks, I think there's some truth to it, and then there's a deeper, like, epistemological issue of what purpose and in business. And my question is, why doesn't Yaron have an answer to this? Because he's an expert on Ayn Rand's novels and business. So it seems like two things that he should have a pretty solid view on. With my thinking, I just thought of this a little bit, and I think the core issue is what is a business. So basically Mackey's asking, what is the purpose of a business? Why is it that purpose? And his answer is, the purpose of a business comes from the purpose of the people who create that business. And that makes sense to me. And maybe what you're struggling with is, how do you go from, a human created purpose to some inherent purpose of a business? It seems like you're saying that the inherent purpose of a business is to make money, which I don't think is true, because I don't think a business has an inherent purpose. A business is just people doing things, doing activity, trading, making transactions, that sort of thing.
I think he was trying to make a distinction between the entrepreneurial spirit of a Dagny and Hank being more than just about the money, about achieving something great and doing things that haven't been done before. Then once they take that product and turn it into a business or company, then the purpose of that business should just be about making money. And
that's what he's saying.
Right.
Yeah, that's what he's saying, but I'm saying that's not right. I'm saying a business, you can have a business for different purposes. A business doesn't have an inherent purpose. A business has the purpose that the business owner created for that business. And it doesn't have to be to make money. It could be to spend money. It could be to lose money.
Yeah,
it could be to satisfy stakeholders. It could be to satisfy shareholders, or satisfy both if possible. It's whatever the business owners want it to be and want it to be for. That's the purpose. So
that is fair. And I don't, and again, I don't want to necessarily, the actual merits of the argument are separate, because Yaron obviously is not the only person at the Ayn Rand Institute. There was another recent show where someone asked about having Ankar to do more debating. And honestly, Yaron didn't seem quite as enthused as I thought he would be.
Is there any way we can get him to start doing debates? What would be the purpose, in the sense of, I think he would do debates. I think, but what is the point of a debate? The point of the debate is to score points with the audience, and for that, I think you have to have a strong stage presence. It's not about how smart you are. It's not about how knowledgeable you are. Ankar, for example, is smarter, more knowledgeable of objectivism than I am. But I think I do debates better, not because the points I make are better, his points would be better, but because I have a better stage presence. I cause people to look and to think and to investigate.
So, I think that's true of Ankar as well. He has decent stage presence.
Well, there's two ways to make people perk up and pay attention. You can run around like a clown, or you can, say insightful, enlightening things that prick people's mental state. I think it boils down to whether you're appealing to their emotional response or their intellectual response. And people, obviously people have both faculties, and depending on what kind of mood they're in, they might prefer to be entertained by a clown, or they might prefer to be entertained by an intellectual. So my takeaway here is that Yaron's whole idea of stage presence is him being loud and confrontational and rhetoric and that sort of thing, talking in a way that's captivating, but he's not like explicitly saying that he has great articulation of ideas or great ways of conveying his philosophy, which I think Ankar does a better job at. And I'm sure Yaron would agree, because whenever he has a philosophical question, he goes to Ankar. So
yeah,
I think that it's a mistake to put down Ankar's stage presence as a reason for him not wanting to debate. I think that there are two ways to get the attention of an audience, and it depends on what kind of audience you have. So if you have an audience that is all gooey over your stage presence, well, then you need charisma, and you need to be loud, and you need to, be able to rattle off whatever the stream of consciousness is. And if your audience is in any way intellectual and can look past the charisma, then you need someone like Greg Salmieri or Ankar Gate, some philosopher who can convey complex ideas in a very profound way.
Yeah, or someone with more charisma than all three combined. Now, I want to be fair here, because Yaron does later say in that clip that he does think it would be great if Ankar did debates.
We all have our division of labor. By the way, I'm all for Ankar doing debates. I think it'd be great. But I'm just saying, for example, he's much better at teaching all of us philosophy letting me do debates, because I'm not that good at teaching you all philosophy. I can teach you some practical aspects of it, and that's what I try to do. But philosophy qua philosophy is not what I do.
So what is a debate? A debate is about teaching people some ideas. It's like, what? Okay,
They
if
seem to
you,
have this view that Onkar can only communicate to people who are only objectivists. And then, he has to bring it to like the outside world where it can be debated.
well, that might be part of it. Maybe it's, but I don't know. I think there's a deeper problem here, is that Yaron might be seeing debates as just some performance. It's like going around the country performing in front of an audience, and you don't need to worry about teaching them philosophy. But why do people go to see an objectivist? They go to see an objectivist to learn about objectivist philosophy, or to learn about his ideas as an objectivist. So it's a little baffling to me that that he wouldn't prefer Onkar doing the debates and then him doing like TV appearances or something, which he used to do. So
Yeah.
I don't know why he's switched now. It's like kind of saying he's the better debater. It's like, no.
He's almost saying because he doesn't know the philosophy as well, that's just the default role for him. That seemed to be what he was saying.
Yes, but why is the default role for someone who's not a philosopher to go debate philosophy?
Well, he's somewhat intellectual. I think the real lesson is that we need to expand the bench overall, not just among these two or three, but maybe some of the the Objectivist Academic Center, where they're training new objectivist intellectuals. Maybe some of those graduates can start doing some public debates.
Well, that would be nice. I mean, they do the podcast. So if you watch the New Ideal or the Daily Objective, they bring on all sorts of people at ARI and people who have graduated from the OAC. So they are out there, and I think it takes a while for someone to be able to debate a serious opponent. So it's maybe they're not ready, maybe they don't have any opportunities, no one's asked them.
I think part of my overall point is that there's a place for liberty movement people to work together, even on things like debate strategy, sharing best practices, preparing for the tactics lefties are going to throw at you. Maybe even some intra-liberty movement debates or intra-objectivism debates would sharpen all of our skills as well.
Yeah, I'd like to see more of that. We have seen some. I mean, the debates with Mackey, I would consider an intra-movement event.
Yeah.
Mackey's a type of capitalist and likes Ayn Rand, and so Yaron's more orthodox objectivist. So I think there is some of that going on already, but I'd like to see more of it. I think we engage with the left too much. I mean, we're just wasting time with the left. I don't think that.
I think it's how you do it. I don't think we can't just, but I think in terms of debating and showing people, there is at least to show moral bravery, that we're not going to just sit back and take them, calling us bigots or bootlickers or, whatever version of fascist they're using this week.
Yeah, I don't know. You have to school me on that point, because I don't really see. I've lived a few decades now, and I've argued with my share of lefties, and I don't see any progress. I don't see a way to convince them that socialism is not the right way.
It's not even just that, because on some hand, when they say, "Oh, we're not doing it for the person we're debating, we're doing it for the people that are watching," and I don't like to get too secondhand, but to some extent, and this is a point I've made on the show, that people want moral bravery, and they're actually right to want more bravery. And so when we're going after these lefties, we say, "Yes, you're a cult. We expect you to call us bigot. We." We expect you to be irrational and standing up to it and putting them back. And that's the type of thing that has people going, "Whoa, someone actually finally stood up to the left. Let me find out what they're more about."
Well, I've always been more interested in making friends than challenging my enemies. I think that you
While
have
the
to.
left was decent, I was all for that too. It's contextual.
I've tried to make friends with lefties. I had a lefty friend who I hiked with a lot, and he got suckered into the whole critical race theory stuff, and I couldn't take it anymore. It was unbearable hiking with him. So it's just a matter of degree to which they subscribe to the lefty ideas. If you can if you find someone who's not that much of a leftist, then yeah, you can be a friend, but it's hard. I think it's hard to be an individualist and a capitalist and be friends with some socialist. It's just, how is that going to
Well,
work?
just timing matters too. And when maybe your friend bought into it, and then a couple years later they're still calling him a bigot, and he's like, "What? This is crazy. They're going to kill me anyway."
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a while, so
Maybe you can touch base. Maybe that can be the inspiration of the show.
before we get to the closing, one quick thing on audiences, because this comes up with Yaron a lot, and it came up with Craig. Is that, how do you appeal to the audience of some podcaster or some interviewer that you're talking to? And I think that people should take some time to think about, what kind of audience do you want to seek out? Do you want to seek out, the audience of a mindless leftist, or do you want to seek out the audience of some, dishonest religious person? If you were to take Yaron's view of these people, I don't know. I don't know which audience is harder to get through to. It's like a mindless one, like a zombie. How do you get through to a zombie? It's there's nothing there. But if they're dishonest, or in my view, Prager is mistaken at a serious level. He's got faith on the mind way too much. So they're still thinking. They're not
Right.
mindless. They're not robots. And so it's a interesting choice of words, I think Yaron is using. He's calling the right dishonest, but the left is mindless. So it's like, okay,
Well, he
we
said that
have
about
to
the
decide,
one.
like, what are they actually? Is the audience actually mindless? Is the interviewer mindless? Or is he dishonest? Or are they mistaken, evasive? I think that you have more of a chance to talk to someone who takes ethics seriously, and
I
takes
agree.
ideas seriously. Like,
Our dance card is not full. Objectivism is struggling for cultural relevance. We don't really have the gumption to be turning down too many dance requests at this point. We should be going in and have a specific strategy for each type. If we're lefties, we're going to start off being nice, tell them we expect them to be mean, and launch a counterpunch once they start punching. With righties, we're going to say, "Look, we don't, we're not religious, but we don't wish you harm. It's just, we're trying to, all live and let live. If you're cool with that, we'll let you be. Don't try to, put restrictions on us, and we won't try to put restrictions on you."
yeah, I think if you find a moderate leftist or a liberal, there's something to work with there. But
Yeah.
if we're talking about like revolutionary leftists, it seems like the socialists are in a revolutionary mode. And if you're in a revolutionary mode, you're more militant, you're more about just crushing the enemy. You're not really about learning or listening. You've got your ideas and you want them to be the way of the future. You're trying to change the culture. So that attitude, I don't think that attitude allows for much like debate, like good, healthy debate or constructive criticism of your ideas, like reflection, introspection. It's more of an outward rebellion. It's and that's kind of why a lot of them become nihilists. They just want to crush the establishment. They want to destroy what they see in front of them so that something new can emerge in this socialist utopia.
Right.
But I don't see a whole lot of that on the right. The right, they had January 6th, but that was kind of just more of a protest against the election. So, but the left has this whole revolutionary thing going on where they want to get rid of the police. They want to change the government. They want to totally remake the economy into this Green New Deal absurdity. It's like they don't have much traditional values. They don't see much value in tradition, right? Because the past was capitalist and religious.
Marx said everything that exists must perish.
Yeah, it's how do you work with those people?
It's not a matter of that. It's that, I mean, part of it is the terms. Yaron, I think, was almost a little bit he so wanted the exposure from Sam Seder being in the news that he just agreed to go on his show, which totally kind of put them, there's like multiple people talking to him at the same time. And he handled himself fairly well, like he said, for the first 3 quarters, all that considered. But to me, it's like, I'm not going to just say, oh, we're not going to talk to, 50% of the country. It's that, well, if you want to talk to me, let's at least hammer out some fair terms, what we're going to talk about. Is there going to be a moderator? What's to stop and just try to affect it from that way. So it's just not a blanket dismissal, but in the right context, you'll discuss ideas with anyone that seems genuine about trying to learn what's right.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a matter of prioritizing time. There's only so much time in the world for me, and I think I'm at the age where I don't want to waste it trying to talk to some leftists.
How many full-time intellectuals are there at ARI?
Well, I don't know. A lot.
Enough that their calendar's not full.
Yeah, I think they can spread it around a bit. I mean, that's one of the problems with kicking out people who want to talk to religious conservatives.
Right.
I mean, or like giving them a hard time.
Or libertarians.
Yeah, or libertarians. So I think people at ARI are kind of stuck talking to the left. It's like the right.
Yeah. If you cut off the right and libertarians, they're kind of the only ones left.
Yeah, Yaron was talking about how his bad experience with Glenn Beck, and I was thinking, well, maybe you shouldn't be so militant against religion. You could make your points like Ayn Rand did with faith and versus reason and that sort of thing, but you don't have to go all medieval on religious people just because they believe some weird things from a book. When I talk to a serious religious person, it usually ends up being that they don't actually believe these stupid myths. They don't accept that it was actual creation. They believe in evolution. A lot of the Old Testament stuff is just water over the bridge for them.
They like talk about Christians as if it's the same ones from medieval times that were, killing heretics.
Yeah, what Christians really focus on is relationships, family, following what Jesus did, trying to be like Jesus, that sort of thing. They believe that they feel some mystical presence, and they think that's Jesus or the Holy Spirit. So
And
they
it's
have,
different with different people.
yeah, it's well, it varies, just like in objectivism. You're gonna have
Right.
all sorts of Christians, all sorts of objectivists now. So I guess my main point is that we need to understand that there are all kinds of people in the world. You can't group all religious conservatives together and say they're not our kind of people, because a good chunk of them are going to be our kind of people, whatever that means. If it means they're potentially objectivists and they're serious thinkers, then you're going to find a lot of them in the Christian world, and you're going to find a lot of them in the left too. But I don't think you can relate very much to the serious thinkers in the left, because they're so serious about revolution and socialism. That's what they're serious about. I think that because religion has so many weird myths and things, religious people can't accept all of them. They'll just go insane if they keep believing the crazy things in the Bible. So they have to reject it. They have to reject it at some point, consider it metaphor. You know, what Jesus said, it was just a parable. It didn't really take place. He's just they're just stories to explain morality to you. The Bible is just becoming like a way of telling moral lessons, you know?
Yeah.
So if like Ayn Rand focused on the morality, altruism versus egoism, if we just focus on that and we keep explaining our position of egoism, eventually it's going to win out, I think, because I don't think the virtue of self-sacrifice is going to win out. And it hasn't really. Most people, they give it lip service. Most people don't go to church on Sunday. Most people don't just worship God all day. Most people engage in secular activities and do secular things and live their life and are selfish.
That's right. And to me, this goes back to the same momentum theory. It's that since the Enlightenment, that Christianity has been on a slope towards becoming less collectivistic, more rational, albeit at a slow rate, and still keeping that kind of even, worldview that we disagree with. But it's in that same way that China, with their communist base, was able to move a little bit towards capitalism, and they got a lot of benefit from it economically. And in this, that's just where Christians are. And so in the same way, there's this new CRT dogma that's teaching that there's, that believing in an objective reality is a manifestation of your privilege. And that's the religion that needs to be fought, the new one that hasn't had time to have to make compromises with reality to survive.
Exactly. Yeah. That's partly why we can't get along with the left, is that they are developing the new religion. It's not a full blown mysticism
Right.
yet, but there are mystical elements to it.
It's
like
developing. It's
like
being
believing
written.
they're destroying biology. Not the CRT aspect of it, but just wokeism in general. It's this whole idea that your subjective reality is reality. If you're a woman and you think you're a man, then you're a man. It's like that's a myth. That's their mythical narrative that they'll creating.
Tell you it's much more complicated than that. You have to make a commitment over many years, take hormones.
Yeah, and one of the things Yaron was debating with one of these leftists was that slavery was an evil. It didn't produce. It wasn't healthy for the economy. It was a detriment to the economy. So one of the ideas with CRT is that slavery gave us what we have today. What we
Right.
have today is because of slavery. Well, no, it's despite slavery.
Mm-hmm.
What we have slavery brought us down. It was a sub. No, not a sub. It was a bad way of doing business, and a lot of business, the way business was done for thousands of years before the Industrial Revolution and capitalism and freedom was bad. That's why humans stagnated for so long. until the Industrial Revolution and individual rights happen.
Sure. Well, all good stuff. I like your analysis. I think we touched on some good stuff, and we'll let people respond in the comments if they want to get into any of the questions you asked earlier as well. And so then we've got another show coming up, I think on the 20th in about 10 days. So we'll look forward to that. And any other issues you wanted to bring up?
No, I'll leave it there for now. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, that was good. I think
Great.
I went off a little too much, but I'm getting a little better at the stream of consciousness thing.
Excellent. Well, great. Well, then this has been the Ayn Rand Fan Club, and we will see you next time.